Hello everyone, and welcome back to your haunted neighborhood, where the streets breathe, the shadows watch, and the past never stays dead. I'm your host, Jody Bohr. Each week, I share true stories of haunted places, cursed objects, and chilling encounters sent in by haunted neighbors like you. So come closer. There's something waiting just beyond the sidewalk. Tonight, one of our haunted neighbors has a story that just couldn't stay buried, that has found its way to us and is dying to be told. So let's open the door, shall we? Step inside your haunted neighborhood. This hotel hides more than echoes in the hall and creaky floors. In a city of fog and forgotten ghosts, someone or something never checked out. And tonight, they've left the door open. Tonight's story, the title is Our Hotel Room Was Already Occupied. I prefer to stay in hotels and neighborhoods with lots of local character because I like to be fully immersed in the personality of a city. I've stayed in dozens of historic hotels across Europe and the US, many of which claim to be haunted. While all were beautiful and some were creepy, I never saw anything truly weird until a few months ago. In November of 2024, my girlfriend and I traveled from the US to London, England. We decided to stay in Soho due to its central location and unique character. After nearly settling on Mimi's Hotel, I stumbled upon a lesser-known place just down the street called Hazlitt's. As soon as I saw the photos of the rooms, I knew we'd be staying there. We checked in at 3 p.m. on a weekday. There wasn't a whole lot of activity in the lobby, so we were probably one of the only guests in the hotel at the time. Our overnight flight had taken 8 hours, so to recharge and adjust to the time change, we decided to nap for a few hours before going out to the pubs. Our room key simply said Sir William Ross. We walked up an old Georgian staircase until we found a door with the same name. The lock clanked, the door creaked, and the floor squeaked as we stepped into a small Gothic vestibule, through another old door, and then into a fully wood-paneled room with centuries of paint-covered moldings and thick globs. The weak autumn sun, obscured by clouds and heavy silk, failed to adequately light the room, so I switched on a lamp. The bedroom was cramped, but well appointed with various antiques. Above our fireplace was an unsettling painting of a frowning old man. My girlfriend undressed and immediately climbed into the heavy oak bed, where she seemed to fall asleep almost instantly. I lingered in the bathroom, brushing my teeth and admiring the historic details. I glanced into the silent bedroom, where something caught my eye. The next few moments lasted probably only a few seconds. At first, I thought I was looking at another oil portrait, one I hadn't initially noticed, but then I realized it didn't have a frame nor canvas. It was a man, maybe in his 30s, standing near the corner of our bed, looking down at my sleeping girlfriend. He had parted and wavy brown hair of medium length and wore a dark jacket with large lapels. His face didn't suggest anger nor malice, but a neutral observation, or perhaps mild curiosity, as though he had just walked into the room and didn't expect to see someone sleeping there. The door to our room was locked, so I assumed a hotel worker had entered, and I was about to tell him this room is occupied, but then I realized it would have been impossible for him to have entered our room in absolute silence. That's when I noticed his clothes and hairstyle again. The reason I initially mistook him for a painting was because he looked like a character from a Jane Austen movie, but dressed simply and more somberly. My brain started to connect the dots. So there's a guy I've never seen before in our room who looks like he's from another century, who somehow entered without making even the slightest sound, even though this old hotel is creaky as hell. In a quiet panic, I felt a surge of adrenaline. It can't be. Holy shit, that's a ghost. I was in total disbelief and caught off guard. I had always heard stories of hotel ghosts appearing in the middle of the night, but not in the afternoon, nor visiting almost as soon as you've checked in. He wasn't transparent, nor floating, nor glowing, nor a mist. It just looked like some guy was in our room. He didn't say anything, and I never saw him look at me, only at my girlfriend. Still, standing only 15 feet away, with only an open doorway between us, I felt an intense sense of vulnerability, like there was an invisible spotlight on me. Now, growing up, my parents have only ever lived in old houses, so this wasn't my first weird experience, although it was my first one in probably a decade. I don't like to give these kinds of things attention, as I think it encourages them to interact with you even more. So I pretended like I didn't see him and turned back to the sink, still brushing. I ran the water and began to unnecessarily and clumsily jostle our toiletries around, trying to make some noise. I rinsed my mouth and turned back to the bedroom. He was gone. I stepped back into the bedroom with an intense feeling of being watched. There was nowhere a grown man could have hidden. I was obviously spooked, but slid into bed and told myself that I was just tired from the long flight and seeing things. Despite my unease, I fell asleep, and the rest of our trip was amazing. I even proposed and got engaged, but that's another story. Now, some may question my response, but what was I supposed to do? Scream and throw my toothbrush at him? Which would have woken up my girlfriend and made me look crazy. Jump through a window and become a ghost myself? Run out of the hotel half naked and be laughed at by staff? The room was already paid for, and it was going to be difficult finding a similar place in central London without taking out a mortgage. The best solution was just to ignore it and hope it left us alone. According to lore, the hotel is supposedly haunted by the ghost of William Hazlitt, a writer who died in the building and who the hotel is named for. I found a portrait of Hazlitt, but to be honest, I don't think he looked much like the person I saw, although I suppose it could have been him. The rooms are named after his friends, which explains the name of the key, but other than that, I don't know anything else about William Ross. I didn't tell my girlfriend my story until we were on our flight back to the States. She breathed a sigh of relief. Thank you for not telling me while we were still there. She said she didn't see or feel anything weird, and I hadn't during the rest of our stay either. But I'd be lying if I said I didn't wake up each night in that room, glancing into the shadows, wondering if he'd return. Now, I didn't take photos for this story because I didn't know I was going to be writing this. However, I found some photos of our room, taken both exactly from my point of view and the man's point of view. Your haunted neighborhood, where every mailbox has a secret, every attic a scream, and every street lamp flickers and lights the way to another spine tingler from one of your haunted neighbors. Tonight's tale, full of whispers, warnings, and things out of the shadows, let's talk about what the story stirred up and why it lingers. That was a fun story from London, England, to have a little vacation and something spooky and then something nice because they ended up getting engaged, but creepy because they thought that it was a painting and it ended up being a person standing there. Makes you think, what would you do if you saw what you thought was a person standing there? Would you react to it, or would you act like they did and just ignore it and hope it left you alone? I mean, that's what they did, and it seemed to just leave. Makes you also think, what would have happened if they reacted? What would have happened if they interacted with the ghost? Would something bad have happened? Would they have looked at them? Would something worse have happened? Or, I don't know. It's just interesting to think, but it's good for them that the rest of their trip went well and they got engaged. They proposed and got engaged. And it's kind of funny that she breathed a sigh of relief. There was like, thanks for not telling me while they were still there. I kind of liked that little part, and the part about that they didn't take photos for the story was like postscript. They added that in there about taking the photos from the man's point of view and from their point of view. I thought was also a nice addition there. Thanks so much, you guys, for listening. And thanks for wandering these haunted streets with me. I hope you'll come back for the next story. See you around the neighborhood.